What is up YouTube? How are you doing today? Chana D or Techno Dad here, and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing the Yamaha RX-V583, and we're going to get into it right after the jump. And I'm back. Now if you're new to the channel and you want to learn about 4K, home theater, and audio products and how to set them up properly, you should consider subscribing, because I'm here to help. And don't forget to hit that bell so you get notified whenever I do a live stream answering your questions and when the next video gets released. Well, now that housekeeping's out of the way, let's get into it. Alright everyone, so it's been about a month that I've had this Yamaha RX-V583, and I've put it through its paces and checked out pretty much everything this AV receiver has to offer. Now originally it came in at $499, but right now it's on sale for $349 through Amazon. So I'll put a link down in the description for that. I happened to pay $499 for it back when I picked it up, so you know, that's just kind of the way it goes with this stuff. You know, one day it's full price, next day it's, you know, $150, $250 off. It's just the way it goes. Anyway, we're gonna go over a lot of the features and then just kind of go into some pros and cons toward the end of the video. I'm sure I'll have a timeline up so you guys can skip around to see, to watch exactly what it is you want to watch. Okay, so first things first, we're going to need to connect to the internet to run our update. Now, doing this was kind of weird because when you go to network, the network names do not automatically pop up. You have to go to access point scan for it to give you a list of networks to join. So once I figured that out, everything was good to go. Ran the update because I knew that the update would add Dolby Vision, and we'll get into HDR a little later. And so the next thing we had to do was go to room correction. So Yamaha uses their proprietary YPAO system for its room correction and measuring the speaker distances and all that kind of cool stuff. So to get this started, I was kind of confused because obviously I'm not reading the manual. At least at this point I wasn't. And I couldn't figure out why I couldn't find this option in any of the menus. So I found out you actually have to plug in the microphone for it to start the calibration system. So I plugged it in and we calibrated the system, or I didn't calibrate the system, I guess it did it. Now once it was done, I went into distances to check to see if everything was okay. Because I know my buddy Youthman had some issues with his Odyssey kind of not really working out well in his home theater, and you can go check out his video about that. I'll put a link down in the description for that as well. One of the things that kind of stuck out to me was my front left and my front right speakers were coming in about 14 feet, yet my center channel was coming in at 17. And I thought, okay, this is kind of odd. And the subwoofer is right next to my front left speaker, so it should probably be about 15 or 16 feet away from the MLP, but the Yamaha was saying 19 feet. So I went ahead and used this TacLife laser measuring device to get some proper readings. So I'm going to show you a slide now of what YPAO gave and what I got from the laser measuring device. Alright, so as you can see here, everything's pretty much on point except for the center channel, 17.2 feet compared to 14.1. The subwoofer, 19 feet as opposed to 15.5. And we've got a couple of little random variances. Presence left, 9.2 compared to 8.9 from the laser measuring device. But the presence right is just about on point, 8.6 compared to 8.5. So I went ahead and made my changes in the distances, mainly the center channel and the subwoofer. Now once that was done, I listened to about 30 minutes worth of content, a couple of different discs, you know, John Wick's one of my favorite to demo with, and I played some Call of Duty as well. And then I went back in to change some of the levels, because since we've changed distances, we might have to bump up or you know, pull back on a couple of volumes. So I went in and actually the only two things I ended up changing were the surround left and surround right. They were down quite a bit, so I bumped them up 1 dB per side. Okay, so both the surround left and surround right went up by 1 dB. And after that, I listened to the same 30 minutes of content, the John Wick and the Call of Duty, and I noticed a difference right away. The surround channels were a little bit more present, and that's kind of the way I like it. Now, all these, changes and all this kind of stuff is really just for my room, my space, and my ears. So, if you guys want to know what settings I use, it's really not going to help you because it has to be done in your house by you, and then you got to figure out, do I like a little bit louder center channel? Do I like a softer center channel? Do I like louder surrounds or softer surrounds? It's really just a subjective kind of thing. But I got it sounding the way I liked it, and it didn't take too long to figure that out. So that was the YPAO room correction. As you saw, it was a little bit off, but it's always a good idea if you guys are doing this to definitely get yourself one of these. I'll put a link down in the description. It's like $30 to $40, something like that. The next thing we want to move on, like I touched on earlier, is HDR. Okay, and that was the main reason we want to do the update so that we can get Dolby Vision support. So I tested 3 formats of HDR, and the Yamaha V583 passed with flying colors. For the first one, HDR10, I just put in the John Wick 4K disc in the Oppo UDP-203, played that, got the HDR10, perfect, good to go. The next disc was a movie called Kick-Ass, which has Dolby Vision. Toss that into the Oppo UDP-203, and we get the Dolby Vision notification. So the third type of HDR that this AV receiver is compatible with is HLG. That stands for Hybrid Log Gamma, and you can find it on Sony's X700 player. The YouTube app in the Sony will support VP9 HLG HDR, and it passes that through over to the AV receiver and then to the TV. Now, if you're wondering where you can find HDR content on YouTube, I usually go to the HDR channel. I'll put a link down in the description for that. And I usually go to, I think it's the China one. It's like the third one over. They got some new ones. You guys can check it all out on your own time. But that's what I usually use to test to make sure that this AV receiver and all the other ones that I'll be testing out will support HLG. So it does. So the Yamaha V583 is 3 for 3 on HDR. Fantastic. Now let's move on to music. So I loaded up my USB thumb drive with DSD, FLAC, WAV, and MP3 files. I didn't have any ALAC files to test out, but I'm sure if Yamaha is advertising it, it supports ALAC as well. So I felt like the experience was a little clunky, as you have to have the TV on so you know what files you're playing. There is a little bit of a display on the screen, but it's only one letter, and you got to keep going down. You don't actually see, on the screen, you see at least 8 to 10 different artists and all that stuff. So what I decided to do, since some of you viewers have told me about the Yamaha app, I went ahead and downloaded 2 apps. One of them is the Yamaha AV controller app, and the other one is the Yamaha MusicCast controller app. Now, you need both of these if you want to stream and have the apps working properly. Now, when I'm talking about streaming, I'm talking about Pandora, Spotify, Tidal, and Deezer. I personally don't use Deezer anyway, so what I gotta say is the app on an iPad makes the experience much better, and I think this is one of the biggest pluses of this AV receiver. This app is awesome. It's very robust. You can turn on and off the receiver with the amplifier. So if you want to come into your living room, you turn on your iPad, go to the app, boom. You turn on the AV receiver, it turns on, you go to USB, you hit play, and you're listening to music without having to turn on the TV. That's awesome. All right, now let's move on to sound. How does it sound? Because I know that's probably what a lot of you are talking about. I think it sounds great. To get to loud volumes, I do have to jack it up to -10, -8, depending on the TV show, sometimes a little higher. Some movies, we're fine at the -15 level, and this is of course just the volume level on the AV receiver itself. This isn't a decibel level. It uses a Burr Brown DAC, and the audio quality is great. I have this AVR paired up with the SVS Prime 5.1 satellite system, so they're very small speakers, and that whole setup, now that the AVR costs $349, comes in at about $1,350. $1,000 for the SVS speaker setup and $349 for the AV receiver. Not a bad price if you're just getting into this and you want to ditch that sound bar and add a big beefy surround sound to your thin TV. Alright, so let's jump into some pros and cons, okay? I think the biggest pro, the number one pro of this AV receiver at this price level, which was $500 but now it's down to $349, the biggest pro is the app. The Yamaha app is awesome. You can control every aspect of this AV receiver through the app. I think that's really great. Good job, Yamaha, and I think that's its number one pro. And I think a close second is that this AVR supports 3 different formats of HDR. We have HDR10, HLG, and Dolby Vision support through this V583. I think that's pretty huge, especially in this price point. Now let's go to the cons, and the biggest con here is connectivity. 4 HDMI inputs and that's it. Do you have a phono stage? Can you plug in a turntable? No, you cannot. So unless you already have a phono amp, then this AV receiver is probably not for you. If you have a turntable, of course, obviously. But the 4 HDMI inputs, kind of rough. Now if you were to go step up and spend $50 to $100 more on the 683, you do get the phono stage and you get 5 HDMI inputs. However, only 3 of those are 4K HDR compatible. So you could plug in one more item, but 2 of those items cannot be 4K HDR. That leads us to, who is this for? So if you're someone that is trying to make the transition from a soundbar to a full-fledged home theater with an AV receiver and surround sound speakers, this is definitely a great way to dip your toe into that pond. At $349, it's a pretty good price for what you get. I would say this is for anyone that has 1 to 2, maybe 3 HDMI sources that are 4K and HDR compatible, and you're probably not the type of person that wants to like upgrade and get a whole bunch of stuff like a streaming box and a Plex server. If you don't need any of those things, then this is probably right for you. Just got like 2 or 3 items to plug in HDMI that are 4K, great. You got 1 extra one that's non 4K, fantastic, you're good to go. But anyway, definitely check it out. I think it's good for the price right now, $349, if and only if you are okay with only 4 HDMI inputs. Me, I need like 6 or 7. Well, that's pretty much it for this review of the Yamaha RX-V583. If you liked it, go ahead and smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel using the button in the middle of your screen. Once again, my name is Chana D. I'm your Techno Dad. I'll see you next time.